there's never been a tryout in Saudi Arabia ever since mine, 5-6 years ago. I think at the time I was still kind of the Saudi guy, so he was like, we gotta get this guy jacked up so that when he goes to Saudi, they like him. And I remember coming out, and I've never had this happen to me before in my life. All the producers were like, everybody leave, everybody get these ladders out the way, we're doing the model segment. We start modeling, and then Vince comes down. I was in the locker room with 50 other guys, and everybody just kept saying, who's winning? Who's winning? Yeah, Heath Slater, I remember from the back, he was like, who's winning the damn thing? And Jay Noble finally was just broken. He was like, that kid from NXT. And everybody turned to me.
Alright guys, welcome to another episode of ARWP, the All Real Wrestling Podcast. I am your host, Eric Novak, and today we have a special guest. Here with me is MANSOOR.
Alright, thank you for having me.
Man, thank you so much for being on. Tell me, how's your day going today?
It's going well. I actually just woke up, so it's not really going at all. This is the first thing I'm doing, so thank you. I'm glad to be doing this. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, man. You know, we're huge fans here of you on the show. And I just want to know, you know, you've been on the Indies for quite a while, and now you're back on the Indies.
Yeah.
And this is your second week in New York. How's that been treating you?
It's been great. I went to college here. I have friends here, so after shows, I get to see them. I had some friends come to the show that I was on in New York City on Friday, which was a blast. I got them involved on the show. I super kicked my buddy. I got super kicked by another guy I know. So, yeah, I had fun. I came last week and this weekend. This is actually my second weekend on the Indies. And I've just kind of been reveling in how much fun it is. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's so different from WWE in the sense that you make your own schedule. You only do what you want to do. And, of course, what I want to do is work every single weekend, every single day of the weekend. So I've been totally fulfilled. It's been a blast so far.
Oh, that's awesome. I do want to know, though. So before, you know, you got to the E, you were at the Indies. And I'm curious how the E discovered you. And what was the plan to bring you in and how that worked out?
Sure. Well, my tryout was in Saudi Arabia. They had announced that there was going to be a tryout for Saudis, and I was the only person at that tryout who had been flown from the United States. I'd been living in the United States since I was about 11 years old, and I was the only person there who had professional wrestling experience. Most of those guys were players of some sort of sport, whether it was football or soccer, or MMA, boxing. They were some people in the military, guys who had that kind of extensive training, but nothing as specific and niche and unique as pro wrestling, which is one of the only sort of forms of art or sport where you specifically put damage to yourself, you know, and you know, crash yourself on the mat. I know they do it a little bit in jiu-jitsu, but I don't think there's any art form or sport quite as self-destructive as professional wrestling. At least in a sport like MMA, someone else is beating you up. You know, you're not beating yourself up. So I think for a lot of those guys, it was kind of a culture shock. Like I remember being in that tryout, and somebody was running, and they hit the ropes, and he stopped, and they're supposed to go back and forth. And Matt Bloom, or A-Train, I don't know if you remember him, he was like, "What are you doing? Why'd you stop?" And the guy was like, "There's a mistake. The ropes, they're too hard." And I was just kind of like, oh no, they don't know, because when you watch wrestling, they make it look so effortless. Mm-hmm. They don't even know that every time you run and hit the ropes, for people who have never done that before, it bruises your ribs.
Really?
It's cable, it's steel cable. It's just that pro wrestlers are so used to running back and forth that our bodies have become accustomed to the kind of punishment that we endure. So I had sent in an application for that tryout, not thinking that I would get a response. And I got a call, and it was like, hey, you're Saudi? Like, do you have citizenship? I was like, yeah. And they were like, if you can send us that and clips of you wrestling, we're going to fly you over. But it wasn't through WWE. It was through the Saudi government. So WWE was just getting people and not knowing really where they came from. So when I got in there and I was doing all this stuff, they were like, wait a minute, you've done this before. And I was like, I've done this before. So it was interesting for sure, and I treated it like it was my one and only tryout. Mm-hmm. If I had not been picked up, you know, there are guys who do a tryout and then 5 years later get another one, but in my mind, psychologically, I set myself up saying, this is my dream job, this is the pinnacle of the industry that I want to be a part of. If this is my one shot, I'm going to treat it like it is. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I was, you know, outlasting all these guys who were professional, you know, athletes. and they were rolling out of the ring and throwing up because they couldn't do the drills, and
Mm-hmm.
I was going strong, and I was probably the least impressive guy there, physically speaking. I was like 170 pounds, and I looked like a string bean, and those guys were like jacked up, and yeah, it was so much to handle for them. Luckily, I had the experience and the stamina to endure it, and I got a pretty good, pretty fun little 5 year run out of it. So I'm very happy.
Awesome. You know, it's one of those things where no one really understands how tough the E is and how you have to actually train for it to get that first opportunity. And you think they were looking for people with visas specifically when they were doing the Saudi tryout?
No, it doesn't really matter to them. They have a whole sort of legal department that handles green cards, visas, immigration, stuff like that. But I was, yeah, it wasn't anything. I don't think that factored into any decision that they made because they
Mm-hmm.
hire a lot of people from foreign countries and deal with all the legal stuff that requires in
Mm.
terms of work visas and green cards.
Yeah, just like right now, you don't really see that many like Saudi wrestlers. Like they
No,
promoted it, and
well, so to my understanding, it was a priority at
hmm
first. And that might have something to do with the department of the Saudi government that they deal with. There's an entertainment department and there's a sports department, and it
hmm
switched at some point. But in the beginning, yeah, it was a priority. I remember right before the pandemic hit, they were like, "Hey, Mansoor, we're going to do another tryout in Saudi Arabia. We want you to come and facilitate that and be a
hmm
part of it." And I actually even was doing talent scouting, and I was finding people in Saudi Arabia, particularly people who had professional wrestling experience, because after Saudi Arabia started hosting shows from WWE, there was a lot of Saudis who suddenly were interested in becoming pro wrestlers, and
hmm
they started going to schools in Bahrain or Dubai or wherever in the area. And I was like, let's get some of these guys who show talent and let's get them in these tryouts. And then the pandemic hit, and it was like that was it. There's never been a tryout in Saudi Arabia ever since mine, 5, 6 years ago.
wow.
And I think that kind of coincides with something that Vince McMahon told me, which was after my match at Crown Jewel with Mustafa Ali, he was like, "Hey, just to let you know, the reason you're not on the next Saudi show is because the Saudis came to me and told me they don't really care if you're on the show. If you're on it, great. If you're not, whatever. They just want to see big stars." I think
hmm
that's the priority for the current sort of regime in terms of dealing with WWE in Saudi Arabia. They want to see the big stars. They want to see Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns and Goldberg and those guys. And I don't really think it concerns them whether or not there's representation on the show. And it's not up to me to determine whether or not that philosophy is sound. If
hmm
the fans are happy, the fans are happy. It's totally fine. And that's kind of why I sort of made the segue into being a maximum male model, because it was like, okay, now that I'm not this guy whose career is carrying the hopes and dreams of millions of people in an
hmm
entire country, that weight is lifted. I can finally just kind of be whatever character they want me to be and show that myself as a performer, as an individual, and not as a representation of an entire race of people. What can I do from a specific performative aspect? So it was definitely a shift for sure, but one that I enjoyed. I think, especially because I got to do it with my best friend.
That's awesome. And you know, it's one of those things where you can have a tag team partner and it could be all business, but you guys have fun.
Yeah,
It really
we
shows.
do. We do.
There's a lot to impact on what you just said. You know, meeting Vince, I definitely want to ask you how that went, and then I want to ask you if you think that's true on what Vince said about how the Saudi, you know, they don't really care about representation, about if it's you, Mustafa, or whoever else will be there. Do you truly believe that in your honest
I
opinion?
do, because I feel like the thing with Sami Zayn is he wasn't allowed to be on those shows, which is terrible,
Mm-hmm.
until recently. I think because there were normalizations between Saudi Arabia and Syria. But I think it also has something to do with the fact that at that point in time, Sami Zayn was the hottest star in the company.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this was right after the Bloodline UC stuff, and I was at those house shows where they were performing, where it was Sami Zayn, Jimmy, and Jay. And let me tell you, like the Usi chants were the loudest chants. Sammy was getting the biggest pops. He was massively over, like
Mm-hmm.
hot, 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 like piping hot. So when it was finally time for Sammy to come to Saudi Arabia, and I think he main evented the show, tag teaming against I think it was the Usos, or maybe it was Roman and Solo. I think it was Roman and Solo. That all kind of fit that philosophy of, okay, if there's a Muslim on the show, great. but what we prioritize is the biggest stars possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also is reflected in, they have boxing events, they have MMA events, and what they want to see is what people see in the United States. They want to get sort of that one-to-one experience, which I totally understand. Like if a foreign show is coming to town, you don't necessarily need people from where you are to be on that show. I totally get it. It's just a different philosophy. And that philosophy shifted while I was there, and it caused a shift in my character. And I really try not to sweat things that are out of my control. Like when I heard that, I was like, okay, fine. I'll try to become as big a star as possible and get back on the shows. But at that point, I was like, God, I don't want to just be on Saudi shows. I want to be on shows all over the world. I want to be on shows in China, Japan, the UK, America. I want to be on those. I think they're called PLEs now, which is a mouthful. Pay-per-view has been my whole life, so I know everybody complains about it, but pay-per-view just rolls off the tongue better. PLE. Ugh, what a gross. Yeah. But yeah, that's just kind of how I feel.
Of course, why add more pressure to things that you can't control? It's one of those things where you can only work on whatever you can control and whatever you can truly, things that are out of your hand. It shouldn't be a stress. It shouldn't be something to think about, and I completely understand that. We talked about Vince. A lot of people have their opinions on Vince, not on a person, just on an educator, on a boss level. How was your first interaction, and what was your most important interaction with him?
Vince was, so it's funny. I got to talk to him a lot at work. You would wait like an hour or 2 hours. There'd be people lined up outside his office, like around the block. And it was always something where it was like, just as you're about to go in, a big star walks by, and so he goes right through, and you're like, okay, well, I gotta let them do that. Yeah, I talked to Vince, and I would always kind of ask, like, what do I need to do to get to that next level? And I would present him pitches and so on and so forth. And I think Vince is the master of making you feel like he listened to you. He has decades of experience of appeasing highly egotistical talent. So when a guy like me comes up who really hasn't done anything, and I'm like, what do I got to do to be successful, blah, blah, here's my pitch, here's this and that. He's like, oh, yeah, very interesting, oh, yeah. And then I walk out, I'm sure he's like, what? You know what I mean? But, he was actually kind of, when I debuted on Raw, I wrestled Sheamus, and I went to Vince the next week in his office, and I said, hey, I just wanted to check in and ask if there was anything I could have done better so that I can be more successful in the future. And he said, he was like, you have great selling, you have great facial expressions. The only thing I want you to do is I need you to put on 20 pounds of muscle. And I was like, oh my God. Like at that point, I think I was 175 pounds. And that was the big challenge for me, was I had never really fully committed to putting on size, and having a really, really strict workout and diet regimen. So Vince hooked me up with his personal trainer that he works out with, who's an awesome, awesome dude. And he basically went over an entire workout regimen with me, day to day to day to day, along with a diet where I was eating I am actually eating a ton of carbs and protein and low fat, just so I can kind of bulk up and put on some frame, because I'm naturally very slim.
No, you're great.
I appreciate that. But yeah, I went from 175 to 200. Right now I like 200. At my heaviest, I was like 210. But that's when I start to get a little love around the edges. So I'm happy where I'm at right now. It's hard to kind of maintain it because I got to eat like a bunch of bagels and chicken and rice and protein shakes and pasta, like protein pasta. And I'm eating basically every hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, just to like upkeep that. Especially when you work out. I try to work out pretty much every day. Ever since I started traveling again, it's been more like 5 days a week. Just because travel days are brutal. You get home and you're like, I try, but it's tough. So I'm doing my best to do that. And yeah, Vince, I mean, I appreciate that he was honest with me. I appreciate that he said, hey, I need you to put on size. If you want to like seriously be considered for a push in this company, I need you to put on size. And he didn't just say that and then tell me to go do that. He said that and gave me the means to do that, which I appreciate quite a bit.
Wow, so Vince hooked you up with his personal trainer?
Yes, he did, yeah.
How many, guys does Vince really help out like that? Or is it everyone in the company?
Probably just the people. I think at the time I was still kind of the Saudi guy. So he was like, we got to get this guy jacked up so that when he goes to Saudi, they like him. I felt kind of the same way when I became a Maximum Male model. And then for the 3 weeks that was a thing that was pushed on TV because, it was before Vince was his first retirement. He was very heavily personally involved in that project. And when Vince is personally involved in whatever you're doing, everybody in the company suddenly treats you like a sacred cow. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when we first rehearsed our first modeling segment, our debut, where Max Dupree came to the ring and he was like, here comes MANSOOR. And I come out and I do this, and Mashead! He comes out and do this, then together we're like this. And it's very rare because, of course, we have rehearsals before the show to go over everything and make sure all the camera angles are good. It's very rare for Vince to actually come down and oversee it himself. He's usually just in his office. But as we were doing the modeling segment, it was the build to Money in the Bank, and there was ladders everywhere. And I remember coming out, and I've never had this happen to me before in my life. All the producers were like, everybody leave, everybody get these ladders out the way. We're doing the model segment. We start modeling, and then Vince comes down with his posse, and he's like, like you would have thought this was like the main event of WrestleMania with how much attention they gave this. During Vince's regime, before Hunter took over, anything that they could see, anything that the team could see that he was personally invested in, they were all personally invested in because it was kind of like you were performing for one person and one person only, and that was Vince. Like, I remember vividly, I did a show in Saudi Arabia where I watched Big E and Drew McIntyre wrestle, and they put on a barn. Can I swear?
Yeah.
But they put on a fucking barn burner. I mean, they worked so hard and just killed it. And it was this crazy match. And I'll never forget, I was watching it backstage on the monitor, and then when they came to the locker room, they looked sad, and they looked down. I was like, whoa, what's going on? I was like, hey, that was awesome. And he was like, yeah, man. And I was like, what? Well, this is so strange. Usually he's so upbeat and optimistic. And I remember asking Drew, like, hey, you guys okay? And Drew was like, yeah. We asked the boss man how it went, and he just shook his head and went, I don't ever want to see you wrestle like that ever again. Yeah, so sometimes you'd go out there and think you'd have an absolute banger of a performance, then you'd go in the back and Vince would just be, bah. And sometimes you think you'd have a boring match, and Vince would go, that was great. So it's like, I don't know, what does he want? He doesn't really like crazy high spots. Like, he always told people to work a hold. Like, I remember Elias, actually, now he's Elijah. He got a bonus one time in his paycheck because he had somebody in a hold, and as they came up, he just put him back down. And Vince went, ah! And he gave him a bonus, like extra money. So it's tough because, the style of wrestling is changing, and people are trying to keep up, but at the same time, the boss man is very, specific about his ways. Now it's different, with Hunter. It's like a completely different style. But it's just interesting to see that kind of contrast,
First of all, you have a phenomenal Vince impression.
You have to. I mean, you have to have a phenomenal Vince impression. He's the easiest guy to impersonate. And there's two Vinces. There's, what about over? He's the new champion. That's like 80s Vince. And then somewhere in the 90s, something just happened to his throat where he just started to talk like that. And then there's a third Vince that people don't really know because it's like after he really appeared on TV consistently. But Vince now, or at least when I was working with him, we're talking a very low, quiet, gravelly voice. Like that, you could barely, I had to really lean in and listen in. And it was very rare that he would get excited enough to start talking like that. You know what I mean? So, yeah. And you know what else is so funny? I like doing backstage promos in WWE. The way that Vince wants you to cut a promo is the exact opposite of the way he cut promos. You know what I mean? Like Vince in the Attitude Era was like, life sucks and then you die. And every time you try to cut a promo like that, the writers say Vince is going to hate that. It's too pro wrestler. It's too pro wrestler. Why are you shouting? Why are you overacting? Like, be subtle. It's like, that's not what he does. Like, he's basically, I mean, a lot of wrestlers will tell you, and I may agree, he's the best heel of all time just because of his ability to gather hatred, heat. His promos were always incredibly entertaining, but at the same time, they were entertaining while getting heat. Like, there's a lot of heels who are very entertaining, and because of that, they just get cheered. And then that's a complete killer for the babyface. Like, if your heel isn't getting heat,
then your babyface is dead. Like the worst spot you can be in is a babyface working a heel that's over and loved by the fans. You're just dead because they're gonna put heat on you, which is in a WWE style match. The significant portion of the match is the heel beating you down so that the crowd gets sympathy for you, so that when you run your comeback, they come up and they explode. But if they love the heel and the heel's just kicking and kicking and kicking and putting a chin lock on you, the crowd's going, yay! You're done. You're screwed. So, Vince is an incredibly uncoordinated, unathletic person. I mean, which is so funny because he's jacked. But when he's in the ring, he's like stumbling around, tearing his quads. But his matches were always the most fan-invested ones because he would get so much heat. So I forgot your original question. Oh, I think it was about an impression.
Yeah, no, I just said you have an amazing impression.
I just think it's just an interesting. God, I remember at WrestleMania during the pandemic, him at 80 years old jumping off the balcony onto the crash pad. And who knows what permanent damage that did to his back? He had surgery. I don't know. He's a madman.
That's the McMahons. Listen.
Yeah, no, the whole family. Yeah, you're right.
Stephanie takes bumps.
Well, okay, Stephanie is a sweetheart. Okay, at least in my experience, Stephanie. I remember we did the SummerSlam water commercial, and that was probably the peak of our careers, money wise too. It was really great. We did that water commercial, and I remember being backstage, and Stephanie, walked up to me and Mace. And we were like, "Oh, Stephanie, it's so awesome to finally meet you." Blah blah blah. And she was like, "I love that water commercial you guys did." I was like, "Oh, Stephanie, we're only trying to meet the standards that you have for us." And she goes, "In my eyes, you boys can do no wrong." I was like, "Oh my God, if only we worked for her." Yeah, so she was great, and what a crazy family.
Yeah, the McMahons, that's definitely the legendary family of wrestling.
That's
They're going to go down in history. And, man, even Hunter, who, is associated now by that family.
Yeah, married in, but still kind of getting that.
He's got that blood. He's got the
yeah, for sure.
You talked about, Elias doing grapples, and you talked about Vince liking more of a grapple style than a high flyer. So there's guys in the company like Ricochet, there's guys...
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
It's so funny because it really just depended on the day. Because I remember the reason Ricochet got called up is because they were looking for people to call up, and they were showing the creative team, including Vince, clips of everybody in NXT, and they showed Ricochet do a 430 and a shooting star, and Vince was like, "Yes, that's exactly what we need. We need more excitement. We need more high-flying, spectacular action." And then they'll call up Ricochet, and then he'll do those things, and Vince will go, work a hold. You know what I mean? It's completely dependent on how he's feeling on the day. That's what I think, especially for producers and writers, their lives were hell because Vince would tell them something on one day, and then the next week they would do that thing he told them to do, and he would say, "Why are we doing this? It sucks." You know what I mean? So it's just brutal.
So would you say the high flyers, and again, I'm not putting words in your mouth, I'm saying with the company, obviously WWE is going a different approach. You think high flyers would last in that company, or you think they're mainly looking for the powerhouse?
No? Yeah, absolutely. I think Hunter, it's like any company. It just depends on the taste of the booker. And I think Hunter likes exciting, fast-paced wrestling. We saw his ideal form of it. I think in NXT, Black and Gold NXT was his baby, and I think that was his basically fantasy show, and it was spectacular. So I think Hunter also knows that WWE, the main roster, it's a much more widespread. There's a lot more of a global audience, and a lot of that global audience is kind of more necessarily invested in character stuff. So I don't think he's just going to completely throw the baby out with the bathwater, and very weird expression, by the way, and go back to NXT Black and Gold on the main roster. I think he understands that you still need to establish characters and invest in storylines, because at the end of the day, that's what Raw and SmackDown is. It's a serialized weekly TV drama with wrestling as sort of the impetus for the action. I just think that Hunter has more of an emphasis on the action part, which I think a lot of people appreciate. So I would say any style is really appreciated, but I think the more fast-paced, high-octane action, I think is going to be more successful in the future.
Understandable. All right, I do want to get to the maximum male models. That's going to be a whole thing. I know you love to talk about it.
Absolutely.
I just want to know one more thing. Saudi Arabia, you did the Battle Royale.
Yeah.
You won that Battle Royale. I want to know when you found out that you were going to win, and honestly, what was going through your head? Because I feel like that was probably the biggest moment for you at that moment. You know what I mean? At that time.
No, 100%.
So I'm very curious to know because a lot of people, again, a lot of people did not know who you were. Like there were a few matches you had. I know you had a few matches in 205, NXT at the time, right?
No, I don't think so.
Before,
I think I had one match on NXT and it was a squash.
Yeah.
So I was a complete unknown.
And you won that battle royale against guys like Cesaro and Sheamus. I think were on that, right? Sammy KO were on. I mean, it was everyone. It was Brian Myers, Matt Cardona were on that.
Yeah, a lot of people were on that.
It was and Samoa Joe was on that.
He
wasn't
was.
he?
That's right.
So we got to talk about that. We got to talk about how
Sure.
you managed. And I want to know. Okay, so sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. What was going through your head when you found out that you were going to win that?
How much heat do I have right now? I was in the locker room with 50 other guys, and they were all asking the producer, Jamie Noble. Jamie Noble was trying to get this match down. He was like trying to get all the spots, and everybody just kept saying, "Who's winning? Who's winning?" Yeah, Heath Slater, I remember from the back. He was like, "Who's winning the damn thing?" And Jamie Noble finally was just broken. He was like, "That kid from NXT," and everybody turned to me, and I was just like, my back was against the wall. Nobody knew who I was. So yeah, I could feel like, ugh, because you know, a lot of people talk about how much money those Saudi shows make, and the thing about WWE contracts now is when you're on the main roster, you don't get bonuses for pay-per-views. You have a downside of, and a very high downside, to be fair, much higher than it used to be. So even if you got injured, if you broke your leg and you were out for a year, you'd still make the same amount of money that year as you would if you worked most shows. But if you sell a ton of merch, and if you're booked on a ton of pay-per-views and shows, then it's called the bucket system. So every time you're on a Raw or SmackDown, let's say you make $2,000, but you don't get paid that $2,000, it goes towards a bucket. When that number reaches the same number as your downside, anything over that is a bonus at the end of the year, pretty much. So a guy like Roman Reigns, let's say he makes $3, $4, $5 million a year. If he works Saudi Arabia and makes $1 million after every Saudi Arabia match, if that money adds up to $5 million and then goes over, he gets that extra money. If that makes sense, it's kind of complicated. But for a lot of the guys who were at the Saudi show in the Battle Royal, they were not going to reach their downside. I never reached my downside. Most guys never reach their downside. So they weren't actually seeing any of the extra money that going to these incredibly lucrative shows were providing. Me personally, I was lucky. I was on an NXT contract where you actually do get bonuses.
Oh wow!
If you're on NXT and you work Raw or SmackDown or a main roster pay-per-view, you get a chunk of change that goes on top of your paycheck because your downside is significantly lower. So I remember I worked that show and I got a check in the mail a couple weeks later, and I looked at my wife and went, and then the Cesaro match happened, and it was bigger, and I went, you know. And those bonuses that I got from those Saudi shows when I was in NXT paid for the down payment for our house. So I will always be thankful to WWE for giving me those opportunities because it put a roof over my wife and my daughter's head. But talking about the Battle Royal and winning, when I was told I was going to be in it, I was like, oh, I think hopefully I'll be in the final 3 or something. And then the heel will throw me out, get a bunch of heat, and then the babyface will throw the heel out, and that babyface will be the winner. And I remember hearing that I was going to win, and I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the biggest moment of my career. My dad's in the crowd, my brother's in the crowd, my family's in the crowd. I have nieces. I mean, ton of people were watching. And I even remember, for the build-up to the match, originally I was supposed to have an entrance. But Vince decided, wait a minute, no, let's not have him have an entrance so that people...
wouldn't expect it.
Exactly. So if I had an entrance and they said, from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, people would be like, oh, this guy's lying. But it's the fact that I just, sneakily appeared, and then once 10 people were left, people started to go, hey, who is that? Who is that? And people were like, oh my God, wait a minute, that's the Saudi guy. And then slowly people were getting thrown out, and finally I threw out Claudio, which was great because we wrestled the next Saudi show, so there was a little bit of a story there where he was bitter about me throwing him out, and I mean, minuscule story, we didn't have it billed on TV or anything. But we can talk about that match later. I love that match, and I'm so thankful to Claudio, and he's just the best. And then, it's me and Samoa Joe, and we're squaring off, and finally it's me and Elijah now. And, God, I finally threw him out. I won that match, and I jumped into the crowd. I jumped into my father's arms, my brother's arms, and everybody was really happy with it. So definitely a highlight of my career for sure.
Wow. I can't believe, they didn't tell anyone in the locker room who was going to win that until they all started rioting.
Well, I don't know about rioting.
Listen, if they're all getting, I mean, I've been in locker rooms and I could tell, who's going to win this. We're all getting ready. We want to know. Because it's like, battle royals are very complicated when you don't know who to throw, off or.
Oh, right, because you'll throw the winner by accident right at the ring. Yeah, no, that's true. Fair enough.
And, it's crazy. I'm sure on your end you didn't notice it, but the commentators were always focusing on you.
Really?
Yeah, they would always talk about you, and the camera would always be on you.
Oh, I did not know that. Because, until the final 5, I pretty much just hid and just got my ass beat. Because I wasn't going to start chopping people. I wasn't going to start hitting people. So I would have guys like, FDR, Dax. He'd be working me. He'd be like, hey, brother, take a chop. Boom! And then Sin Cara would pick me up. Take a chop. Boom. Cesaro would pick me up. Euro. Boom. I was like, I'm not going up to any of these. I'm not doing any of that with these guys. These guys can beat me up all day long until it's my spot because, I wasn't trying to get heat with anybody. No, luckily, it wasn't a Daniel Pewter situation in the Royal Rumble where people didn't want to just, kick my ass. Everybody was really cool. And everybody was really nice. And, I'm lucky enough to have been in an environment in an era where everybody is at least cordial, right? Nobody is terrorizing each other backstage. Everybody that I met was really cool, man. Backstage, the environment was awesome. When we weren't working, we were playing Tekken with the New Day and the Usos and Ricochet, down. Cedric, Shelton. Yeah, I mean, those guys are awesome. I miss them dearly. Can't put over those guys enough.
Something with WWE, it's the one thing everyone knows is the locker room is all professional.
Yeah.
Most companies have their issues, and it's, again, based on how you want to have a leader and how you want to coordinate a locker room. If you want certain people to feel more popular than others, then they'll feel that way. I heard Taker, who comes to these events, stays in the same locker room as everyone else. No one's got a special privilege type of thing. Is that true?
I mean, there's some guys who have their own locker room. Like Brock has his own locker room. Roman has his own locker room. They worked for that, of course. Mm-hmm. Certain guys would come to the boys' locker room, even if they were. But Edge is a great example of a guy who made it a choice to change with us. Danielson is a guy who changed with us. So it kind of just depends on the person and how much they value either privacy or feeling like one of the boys. You know what I mean?
Of course. So let's talk about the maximum male models.
Yeah,
this is what we waited for. Again, the promos out of this world.
Oh, thanks.
I thought it was honestly one of the best things on television. You guys were hilarious. I remember when Mace was missing, that was the whole thing with the roller race.
Oh, yeah. The YouTube stuff we did. Super fun, yeah.
Which is, again, that's one of the stuff that you guys, is that your choice to do YouTube outside of it? Because if WWE wasn't going to air it on, TV?
Yeah, so I remember we did the program with LA Knight where he went from Max Dupree to LA Knight. Mm-hmm. And I remember going to my writer. A writer is assigned to us, and they're our liaison with the creative team. Mm-hmm. And I went to a writer and I said, hey, everything's going great, but I'm just telling you right now, please, I'm going to pitch you guys stuff for after this because I just know Max Dupree is going to become LA Knight, and then we're going to disappear. And he was like, no, that's not going to happen. You guys are great. We'll find something for you. And I was like, listen, I know what's going to happen. We're going to put over LA, and we're going to be gone. And he was like, no. What happened? We put over LA. We were gone. So I was like, okay, what can we do? Because we're not the kind of people to just sit back at home and collect a paycheck. I was never that kind of person, and neither was Mace. And neither was Maxine. I mean, she was brand new. Her first day on the job was the day Vince retired.
Wow.
She got called up, went to SmackDown, was supposed to cut a live promo, and then we get a text from Vince McMahon saying, I'm retiring.
Was that during that time where, it was very...
Yeah, he had the allegations against him, and I think, he just stepped down. I mean, there was too much heat. Everybody was like, what's going on here? Why'd you do this? Mm-hmm. And he was gone, Hunter was in, and it was suddenly, you could see the look on people's faces. There are people who I think were Hunter's people that were elated, and then there are people who are Vince's people who were like, oh no, I'm screwed.
What do we do?
That's just how it is. That's just how wrestling is. When a booker changes, they have their guys, and the guys from the previous regime are sort of phased out. It's just that's normal, It's so when that happened, Maxine was like, I don't know what to do because I was Vince's last call up, And Maximum Male Models was Vince's last idea. I mean, this was something that Vince was shouting about in creative. We need models. I want male models on the show. For a year, that's what writers told us. That's what producers and writers told us. They said, this is Vince's baby. Right? This is Vince's baby. Don't screw it up. Because if you do this right, you guys will have a job for life. You guys will be millionaires. I was like, all right, slow down. You know what I mean? Like, I know that Vince loves certain things and then he falls out of love with them. So, but I was going to try to make the most out of the run to show that I'm a good soldier. I'll take whatever idea you have and I'll make it entertaining and make the most of it. And then, yeah, everything happened. So we were off TV and I said, listen, guys, why don't we do like a reality TV show? Put it on YouTube, and maybe, just maybe, if it's good enough, they'll either put it on TV or it'll inspire them to put us back on TV. And, you know, lo and behold, that's kind of exactly what happened. We did like a 12-episode run. The person who was running the YouTube, like, wanted us canceled like 3 times. Like, they tried to take the videos off the YouTube. And every time, it was for different reasons. The first reason was he said, well, it's not getting enough views. We don't want it on YouTube because it's not getting enough views. So I put together a 6-page report, and I researched, and I put pictures and graphs of all the views of original content on the YouTube. Non-televised content, our videos were always in the top 3. So I said, if you're going to take ours off, you're going to have to take all these other ones off because we're doing pretty good considering, you know, we're not on TV and this isn't on TV. This is original content. And then they were like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. And then the second time they tried to cancel us, it was because they had felt. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
So they tried to cancel you once after you looked at the views.
Right.
They tried to cancel you.
What was the second reason when they tried to do that? I had it in my head. I apologize. You can cut around this if you want.
Yeah. Let's for now talk about something else a little bit. So
no, hold on a second. This is killing me.
Oh no!
Because I remember being really pissed about this. And saying, why would you do that? That makes no sense. I think that, so they wanted us to put it on our Twitters instead of on their YouTube. Oh, right, this was it. Okay, they said they were mad. They felt that, or not they. It was one person. It was one person who had it against us for whatever reason. He said that we were going over creatives' heads because we were writing, producing, directing, and putting together this content on our own. And they were like, well, you're not going through creative. You're not going through creative. So we can't do this. I mean, you're bypassing the structure. I said, I went to our writer and I said, hey, are you cool with everything that we're doing? And he said, we love it. We love what you guys are doing. You have complete freedom to do all of that. And I said, can you please let this guy know? Because he thinks we're going over your head. He was like, absolutely not. You're not doing that. I'm going to talk to him right now. Talked to him, settled him down, and then we got to complete the series. So we were kind of like reaching blockades and impasses along the way. And finally, like, we finished that 12th episode where we were done with the series, and then my daughter was born. And in the hospital, I'm looking at my wife holding my newborn child, and I get a call from the writer, and he says, hey, we were on SmackDown at the time. He says, can you be in Raw? Can you be at Raw in a couple days? And I had it on speaker, and I looked at my wife, and I was like, and she was like, she smiled, and she nodded. Because she's an amazing woman and an incredible partner, and she understands that this is our life, you know, it's just kind of the way that it is. And so 2 days after my baby was born, I flew to Monday Night Raw. And to be fair to WWE, when I told them that my daughter was just born, so I had to think about it, they were like, totally understand, you don't have to go, you don't have to go. But, you know, I went because I felt like this was our opportunity to get a run as the Maximum Male Models and show Hunter that we could work and that we would be an entertaining part of the show. So it was important to me that I make that trip.
Another thing is, it's like you and Mace were perfect for that. When you said it's Vince's baby, I believe it, but I feel like if they put anyone else in the roster, I just don't think it would have been good.
Sure.
Because you have the attitude, your promos are insane, you're hilarious, and you and him had that true to honest connection. Like, it's amazing. You just did a thing, you just did an ad for a toy store or a wrestling store.
Oh, did you see that?
I did, cool. and I noticed what you did as because you're on an action figure, so you take the
Ali, yeah.
It's like, again, things like that are just creative. You're making humor into a way where it's like you want to bring people in, and I love the way you get to do that. And I really hope you guys either create a channel, you start doing more stuff like that, or even do a podcast with him.
Sure.
That would be honestly insane, and I just love it. Again, it was a genius idea for Vince, and it was only good because you two did it. I don't think anyone else could have done that.
I appreciate that. Yeah, like my opinion, a lot of people poo-pooed on it and they said it was hokey, but to me it's like the male model gimmick is basically the oldest gimmick in the history of our sport and art form. Like when you look at Gorgeous George and you look at Classy Freddie Blassie, like these are gimmicks that existed in the oldest ages of professional wrestling. It's just people don't like men who are narcissistic and are effeminate. They just don't. Like it's a lot of the fans who, but at the same time, we're in an age where a lot of people do like that. So that was what's great about the models is that we would go to shows, especially house shows. House shows were the best. And like, not half, it'd be like 80% of the crowd was like, boo, boo, stop, We do this thing called the 5-minute pose, where we just stand in the ring for 5 minutes doing this, and everyone would hate it.
We're going to do that right then.
Oh, 100%. But there would be a small portion of the crowd being like, yes! They were loving it. Like, I remember one time I was making my entrance, and there was like this group of girls going absolutely crazy, and I started voguing at them, and they just like, they almost passed out, and I felt like I was in the Beatles, like, you know what I mean? It was wild. So, yeah, those house shows are the best because the thing that actually was great about the Maximum Male Model gimmick was that even for people who don't watch the product, and there were a lot of people at these house shows that were casual fans, and they don't necessarily watch week to week. Even if they had never seen us on TV, they could see us as the Maximum Male Models walking out and instantly know how to feel about us because who we were and our character was so concrete and understandable from the get-go. So that's what I liked about the Maximum Male Model character is that, just like any great gimmick, the moment you walk out the curtain, people know how to feel about you.
Okay, now to the future pro wrestling. You know, I want to talk about companies. I want to talk about things that you've been looking at, things that maybe are on your horizon. Obviously, an incredible tour coming up. I can see that your schedule is booked. You have matches.
I'm very lucky. I'm very fortunate.
It's amazing. I mean, listen, you deserve it. You are a super talented wrestler who deserves it.
I appreciate that.
It's no surprise to me that you're being booked everywhere. There are so many companies. Wrestling has really changed this year. Like this year, it's a whole new landscape. You got TNA, you got New Japan, who's doing you know all their US stuff now. Just yesterday, there was like 3 pay-per-views. AEW had Battle of the Belts. New Japan had Battle in the Valley. Impact had TNA. And I'm curious what you've been looking at, because I know as a wrestler, you know, I'm sure you've dabbled your toe in with a little bit of wrestling outside of it. Is there anything that you are really interested in? Anything that, or any wrestler that you're really interested to face? It could be a tag team, it could be a singles competitor.
Yeah, I mean, I of course right now I take a look at the landscape. I see guys like Speedball Mike Bailey as somebody that I really want to work one-on-one. Mason and I always talk about how we want to wrestle the Motor City Machine Guns, who of course are Deadlock Pro Wrestling champions. That's for us. I think the goal right now is to get high and above in that division, in that landscape, in that company, which has such a great tag team division, and trying to win those prizes from such a prestigious and noteworthy tag team who we were fans of. I mean, we watched TNA when we were younger, so for it to come back, it's almost like for Impact to become TNA again right around the time we become free agents. It's like, man, that would be great. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we're open to anything. I mean, the thing is, we're so happy to be working because we were killed off the models gimmick. We weren't the models anymore, and they just kept saying, we're going to repackage you. So that's why we came up with these pitches and vignettes that we filmed on our own, presented to Creative, that we posted on the internet after we got released. But by the time we had gotten released, we hadn't been wrestling for like 3 months. We were just at home. And then 90 days after you get released, so half of a year I didn't wrestle. I didn't perform.
Wow. So
I'm so hungry. We're both so hungry, ravenous for these opportunities where up until May, I'm working every single weekend, almost every single day of those weekends because I was so just completely and totally starved for work. I'm happy to work. I'm happy to wrestle at any company. I'm happy to do any signing, any seminar. I just did a seminar at NYWC, which was amazing, and the students were amazing, and the staff was amazing, and I had such an incredible time. I love teaching. You know, I truly do. I find it incredibly fulfilling to see the light in people's eyes when they finally understand or get something that I was trying to communicate to them. And I love seeing the light in people's eyes when I go out there as a wrestler and they're fans and they get to see me perform in a way they've never seen me perform before, or I get to create a moment for them that they'll remember for the rest of their lives. I mean, that's why I do what I do. And getting to do that in as many different places as possible for as many different kinds of people as possible is important to me. That's why I'm so excited to I can't say where yet, but I'm going to be leaving the country this year. I'm going to be going to all kinds of places.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to get to go to places that I've never been before. And I'm just so excited because it's like finally I get to make for myself something that I've dreamed of.
I'm gonna predict something.
Okay.
Australia. I'm gonna say Australia. I know there's a really big company that takes specific wrestlers from the US to Australia for like tours, and I believe TJP is a champion there. Osprey was just there recently. But we'll see if that's true. That's my prediction.
I've never been. I would love to go.
All right. So yeah, Motor City Machine Guns. I saw you guys call them out. I've seen them multiple times on multiple podcasts.
Yeah,
I've seen you call them out. And I did not know they were Deadlock's tag team champions.
Yeah, they just won it at the anniversary show.
And you guys just showed up to Deadlock.
Same show we showed up at.
So that would be insane to have a match.
Absolutely.
Wow. And then Mike Bailey. That's a great...
He's awesome, dude.
Great opponent.
He's awesome. I love Speedball. I'm a huge fan of his work. I also think about like TNA tag team champions, ABC, Chris Bay, Ace Austin. Those guys are awesome. I've known Chris Bay for a long time. We worked on the Indies before I got signed, and to see him so successful is so incredible. I'm incredibly proud of him. I'd love to work him again. Now with my partner Mace and his partner Ace, that would be really cool. Oh yeah, that's funny. I just thought about that. Yeah, there's so many awesome talent. I could list so many, and the list would go on and on. And I'm happy because we live in a landscape now in professional wrestling where you can work for an AEW, you can work for a TNA, you can work for a New Japan, and you can still do independent dates. And kind of like Motor City Machine Guns, they did a show in AEW. You know what I mean? I mean, there's flexibility. You can do AAA, you can do TNA, CMLL, you can do New Japan. They're much more flexible than WWE about whether or not you can sort of dabble in all of these companies and make the best living for yourself while remaining an independent wrestler, which I think is really important.
You're right, and of course, TNA I believe has a contract with AAA. CMLL has a contract with New Japan.
That's right.
And MLW has a contract with AAA. And honestly, I think WWE is doing something with AJPW. I think they just sent William Regal's son.
They did.
There, so wrestling.
I love it. I love cooperation. It lets people like Regal's kid do things that they would never be able to do otherwise, and work a style that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise, and work people in an environment that they never would have otherwise, which is incredible because exposure to things that are different and unique when you're in a company like WWE where there is such a focused style is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, and honestly, TNA, that sounds perfect for you. I don't know why, just hearing you talk about it and hearing you list the competitors there, it's like, I just think TNA would be the perfect company for you.
I think what they're doing is awesome, and I watched a lot of the show last night, and I've spoken to Tommy Dreamer. Everybody knows, like, he works there. I talked to him on Busted Open, and I didn't know whether I could say this or not, but he just openly said, like, on air, he was like, me and Mansoor talked, and he said the most incredible, kind things about me. If you want to go back and watch that Busted Open interview, I was like shocked to hear somebody of his stature say such generous and kind things. So it's even if I don't get signed, I would just like to work there just to be able to show to a new audience on a new platform just exactly what I'm capable of, because I know it's such a cliche to say, oh, now I'm not in WWE, I'm going to show you just how good I am. And then you go out there and you kind of suck. It happens a lot. But for me, it's like, God, the first thing I did when I got into WWE was I had a 20-minute match with Dark Sheik. Who I wrestled, that was my last, on Hood Slam, yeah. That was my last match before I got signed. So it was a full circle moment for me where finally I got to go to my home promotion where I was trained to somebody who had so much influence on my career, and wrestle her again, and just I can see the pride on people's faces because it was such a full circle moment of me coming back 5 years later, and they got to see how much I improved and how much I learned. Like, that's what's great about WWE and being in that system is you can feel like you're being chewed up and spit out and torn apart, but once you're out of it, you can go, wow, I actually did learn a lot, and 100% I did. Like, I always credit the PC, the trainers there, particularly like Terry Taylor, who was my coach for a long time, taught me so much about psychology that I apply to my matches now, where I'm always, even, I just did a no-ring hardcore match at New Fear City in a bar. No ring, it was just on a stage. And I swear to God, like, I kept laughing because I was like, that's a good story. Yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll pay it off later. I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is a no ring. I'm hitting you with a giant rubber mallet.
I lost my mind. And then you popped it.
It exploded. I was so happy. I just like exploding the thing on the dude's nuts. Crowd went absolutely crazy. And we paid that off because the whole match I was hitting him in the dick. And then for the finish, he blows me and hits me with a stunner. And I was like, yeah, we're telling a story here. Like, that's the most important thing is, and it's not one or the other. That's what I always tell people. That's what I tell people at seminars. Like, there's sort of a weird perception that you can either be a spot heavy, just moves, or you work a chin lock, you work a hold, and you work some punches and kicks. No, you can absolutely tell a great creative story using creative high spots, but picking your spots and using them in the right way so that you emphasize and maximize them while not sacrificing your health. Big moves. I'm totally like, I love to synthesize philosophies. Like Terry Taylor was a guy who wanted us to slow down and be deliberate with everything that we do. And I absolutely agree with him. But in the current landscape that we're in, where like I'm on the indies and people want to see some action, I apply that philosophy to the style that I'm working with whoever I'm working with. I love that synergy. There's a term for it. It's called like dialectics or something. I'm way too stupid to understand it, but it's essentially, the meaning is you take two opposing forces and you have them clash, and whatever results out of that, the synthesis of those two philosophies is ultimately going to take the best of both. So I probably totally butchered the word in the definition. I don't even think I said it right, but that's my philosophy about wrestling.
Sound smart, you know.
I may sound it, but I'm not. Trust me.
Everything don't chew you up.
Yeah, right.
You convinced me.
Yeah.
All right, we have 15 minutes. You know, I still want to talk about a few more things. Just want to let you know we got 15 minutes.
Okay, sure, yeah.
All right. What is the biggest life lesson you have learned while wrestling? It could be from when you were in WWE. It could be from when you were in the indies. Just what is something that you cherish and always remember when you're on the road, when you're, you know, backs against the, you know, the wall and you decide you want to quit?
I've never wanted to quit pro wrestling. I did want to quit WWE.
Oh, wait. I want to hear this.
Yeah.
I want to quit WWE.
Well, when the male models gimmick was killed, it's so funny. Because people are going to say, like, oh, well, you got released, so obviously you didn't want to quit.
Okay.
But I was considering asking for my release. I was thinking, like, maybe in January, because we had pitched these gimmicks, and it just felt like we weren't going to get anywhere. Like they said they liked it. I mean, we flew to Connecticut, and we met with them in person, and we, like, filmed professionally made vignettes to show these characters, and they said they liked them, and they tried to figure out how they can be put on the show. But it was like month after month after month of just being home, and just, it's so, I can't even describe to you how horrible watching wrestling is when you're not allowed to do it. And if you're a free agent, right, if you're, let's say, working at AEW or TNA, and you're not being used, you can at least exercise some of your creativity by doing indies. But in WWE, that's not the case. If you're not booked, you're not wrestling. You're not performing in front of an audience, which is like what you started doing this thing to do. You're being paid very well. Believe me, very well. You know, my house is paid off, thank God, and thanks to WWE for that. But from a creative standpoint, you're like, God, the clock is ticking. I'm 28 years old. I feel like I'm in the prime of my life. I'm in the best shape of my life. And I feel like I finally reached a level where I used to watch my matches and be embarrassed because I felt like I didn't move like a wrestler. I felt I didn't have the confidence of what a professional wrestler looks like when they're moving around the ring. And finally, like, I hit like 8 years in the business, and I started watching my matches back and going, I got it. Like, finally, I get it. Like, I finally move like a wrestler, carry myself like a wrestler, look like a wrestler. And I said, why am I doing nothing? Why am I doing nothing? If I finally reach that place where I'm confident enough in my own abilities to say, no, I do deserve to work. And of course, you know, the company took that decision out of my hands. So whatever, it all worked out in the end. But I just wanted to work, and that's why I'm working every weekend, because this is what I was born to do. I truly feel that way.
Did you know you were going to be released? Was there any warning?
I had an inkling. No warning, but I had an inkling. I felt like we were due for releases, and I knew that
this was the second biggest group of release. I remember they did one back in 2020.
Pandemic,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, where they released so many people with no notice.
Yeah.
And I remember Nick Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler, said something about how he literally bought everybody's like merch during that time. and I was shocked to see that he was on the list for this time. No one really can guarantee a spot in WWE, so I was curious if you had any update whatsoever.
But I'm happy that Nick is gone because, he just showed up in New Japan and TNA. He's going to completely and totally revitalize his career. And for a guy like Nick who grew up in that system, it probably sucked the love out of wrestling right out of his soul. You know what I mean? Like he's only done WWE.
Yeah.
And when you've only done WWE, it can feel scary to do something else because you know that for so long. He basically grew up. I think he got signed when he was like 19. I think he got 20, like right out of college.
The cheerleading.
Even before that, he was a caddy for Chavo Guerrero.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's been around forever. And for him to finally do New Japan and TNA and knowing how great he is, finally branching out and betting on himself is phenomenal. Like because it's so funny because like when he tweets, he's like, "Oh, I don't watch wrestling, brother. I don't watch." No, he watches wrestling. He loves it. He loves wrestling. You just can't like as much as WWE. Sometimes I'm not trying to be like WWE bad. But sometimes working there can just stomp the love right out. And I hated watching wrestling when I worked there sometimes because I wasn't doing it and I felt so bitter. But now that I'm out of it, I can watch and be like, ooh, that's cool. Like I see myself in that position because the possibilities are endless. I'm super proud. He's awesome, man. He's the best.
So you had no notice and they just announced it. Was it a weekday, weekend? I don't
really remember. All the days blend together when you're not working. It doesn't really matter what day it is.
What was your mental state during that time?
Terrible. I was... you just keep wondering, what did I do wrong? Could I have done anything better? Should I have been trying to get back on NXT? Like, was I too late with something? I think it was just like, we got to free up the budget and these guys aren't on TV and we're paying them every week to do nothing. So I get it. It's fine. It's a hard pill to swallow because all that you're told when you get a gimmick like the Maximum Male Models is if you fully invest in this and fully commit and you don't poo-poo and you don't make a boo-boo face and you show the company that you're willing to do whatever they ask, you'll be rewarded for it. And I felt that wasn't the case. But at the same time, it's just the circumstances of things beyond your control. If anything, what did end up rewarding us from the Maximum Male Model gimmick is that because of that run as the models, we've gotten more people reaching out to us saying, I want to help you guys. I see how talented you are because of the model stuff. It wasn't retribution and it wasn't me. I had some great matches in Saudi Arabia, but as a performer, as a character, sort of performer, as somebody who could portray a gimmick and be an entertaining speaker and a compelling TV character, that wasn't seen until I was a Maximum Male Model. And I had people in the business be like, hey, I love the model stuff. I love that you got to show range. I'm going to give you an opportunity or at least forward you to this person and put you over to this person because I feel that you do have talent and you do have potential. So in a way, it did pay off, absolutely. I mean, there are producers actually in the company, agents, who became close to us because of the model run. Because we worked so many house shows, we did European tours, where they saw how much the crowd loved it or hated it. And they saw the work that we were capable of, and we were given a little bit of time and leeway to actually go out there and try and kill it. Like with Alpha Academy and the New Day, we were having these matches that were going crazy, and the crowd was super into it because they got into our characters. And those agents like Daivari and Hurricane and Abyss and Pete Williams and Adam Pearce, guys who had seen us work, Jamie Noble, were the first ones to kind of help us when we got out of the company. So I always truly appreciate that.
Yeah, it's amazing just to hear how all that happened. Wow. Man. And we've been here so long, we were talking about everything. I'm kind of running out of questions at this point. But, we're short on time, but I do have one more.
Sure.
And it's the fact that you're talking about how you didn't know how things happen for a reason. What is something that you want to bring out right now, other than, the Mike Bailey Motor City Machine Guns? What's something that you want by the end of the year? What is your main goal this year?
I would say my main goal this year is to work as many places as possible, as meaningfully as possible. All I need, and this is all I've ever said, all I need is one opportunity at your show. If I go to a show that you go to, I can show you just exactly who I am. And that's why I said that in that promo I recently put out announcing all the promotions I was working with so far. Some of them were not on there that I have to keep a surprise. Because I want people to know when I'm coming to your town, I'm introducing myself to you for the first time. Because this is the first time I get to actually be myself. And I know that's a cliche. But what I mean to say is,
I get to actually show who Mansoor is. Mansoor Al-Shahil, somebody who has a love for his daughter, his wife, but also somebody who's really goofy and just kind of wants to just be this funny, but at the same time compelling professional wrestling character and performer who can go out there and steal the show and have an amazing match. And then after the show, you can go to his merch table and shoot the shit with him and laugh because that's just the kind of guy I am. I had a match last week where I got the shit kicked out of me. And then I just walked over to the merch table and I sat down and I said, come buy my stuff. I'm half naked and I want to rub my sweat on you. You know, that's just the way I am. Like, and then I was watching the show and I saw a guy bend over a dude and start spanking him. And then he stopped and I was like, no. Spank him again! Spank! I had the whole crowd chanting, spank forever! And the guy was spanking his ass. That's just that. Me and Mace is the exact same way. We just want people to have fun and enjoy themselves because that's the point of professional wrestling. To forget about your roles, forget about your worries, and just immerse yourself in this crazy and wacky world where guys like me and guys like Mace can put on a great show. And by the end of this year, I just want people to know I'm the most capable, captivating, charismatic performer in professional wrestling. And when I come to your town, I hope I get the pleasure of meeting you and introducing myself to you for the first time.
And wrestling fans, they love that. Like, literally, come here and come get my stuff. Like, they love that. They love.
They want to feel. I love that. I love that they want to feel like they know you. You know, which is just great because like I'm putting my life on the line for you, and then you come over and you support me by buying my shirt and speaking to me and telling me what you like about what I did. It validates what I do because without fans, if a tree falls in the wood and no one is around to hear it, does it really happen? It's how we are with wrestling without fans. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So you bought a merch. You know, how can people follow you? How can people support you? How can people buy your merch? Where can people buy your merch? You know, you got OnlyFans. You got TikTok.
Not yet. Mace might soon. I'm on all socials as Suave Mansoor. That's SUAVE MANSOOR. I have a link tree where you can look at all my links. I'm on For Your Wear, FORURWEAR.com, where you can see my merch. I got some really cool shirts. Me and Mace have some really cool shirts. We have a Kids Next Door t-shirt. I don't know if you know that show.
Of course.
The creator of Kids Next Door hit me up after that shirt, and he sent me a drawing of number 4, like calling me out. And then he mailed me like hand-drawn pictures of the Kids Next Door.
Wow.
Yeah, Mr. Warburton, he's super, super cool. Yeah, I was a huge fan of that show. So that blew my mind.
Amazing.
Yeah, we got some awesome merch. Check it out, foryourwear.com, Suave Mansoor, all socials. We stream on Twitch every week, like 2 or 3 times a week at Great Black Otaku. That's Mace's channel. And yeah, we want as many people as possible to get involved and follow us on this crazy journey.
So just want to confirm, no OnlyFans?
Not yet. I had a guy ask for a video of my feet on Cameo. I'm available on Cameo as well, but I did not do that. No, I'm not that desperate. Not yet. We'll get there.
Oh, thank you so much, Mansoor.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Part of the show.
Yeah, of course.
It was an honor, and I hope we get to do this again next time.
Absolutely.
Take care, everyone. Have a good one.